There was a time when feedback traveled quickly, not through surveys, not through platforms, not through dashboards, but through conversations. Someone would speak up in the meeting, someone would pause a manager in the hallway, someone would raise a concern before it became a problem, and people listened, not because it was required, but because it mattered. As the organization grew, listening became more organized. Suggestion boxes appeared, town halls were scheduled, engagement surveys were launched. The intention was good. Listening now had a process. At first, people spoke carefully, then confidently, then regularly. They filled out surveys thoughtfully. They shared ideas in workshops. They raised concern during open forums. And leadership nodded. Notes were taken. Slides were prepared. Action plans were announced. Everyone felt heard. But something subtle began to change. Not suddenly, not dramatically, quietly. People noticed that the same issues returned each year, with slightly different wording. They noticed that questions were welcomed as long as they fit within the agenda. They noticed that difficult feedback was acknowledged, then parked. They noticed that enthusiasm to speak was high, but energy to act was low. Over time, voices softened, not because people had nothing to say, but because they were no longer sure it made a difference. Meetings became quieter, not efficient quiet, careful quiet. The kind of quiet where people think before they speak and then decide not to. In surveys, responses became shorter. Neutral replaced honest. Safe replaced sincere. Comments disappeared. Scores remained acceptable. Culture reports looked healthy. Managers began saying things like, "People don't speak up anymore. Engagement is fine. No one is raising concerns." And it sounded reassuring. But it wasn't. Because silence is not the absence of problems. It is often the presence of resignation. Somewhere along the way, employees learn an unspoken lesson. Speaking up carries effort. Listening requires commitment. And commitment was inconsistent. So people adapted. They stopped offering ideas that challenged decisions. They stopped raising concerns that slowed momentum. They stopped pointing out patterns leadership didn't want to see. They focused on delivery. They did their jobs. They stayed professional. The organization continued to function. Targets were met. Meetings were held. Initiatives were launched. But something essential was missing. Culture slowly shifted. Not toward conflict, toward compliance. Not toward resistance, toward indifference. The most important conversation no longer happened in meetings. They happened after, in corridors, in private messages, outside the buildings. Leadership wondered why innovation slowed, why engagement felt fragile, why trust felt thin, why people seemed present but distant. The answer wasn't hidden. It had been spoken many times, but not absorbed. Listening is not about collecting input. It is because what changes because someone spoke. When employees believe their voice shapes decisions, they invest. When they believe it is noted but ignored, they withdraw. When they believe silence is safer than honesty, culture changes. Organizations don't lose trust when people disagree. They lose it when people stop believing disagreement matters. The day the organization stopped listening was not the day people stopped talking. It was the day people realized nothing moved when they did. And culture remembered, because culture always remembers.